Oh, hello and welcome everybody to our live stream at the Widener Small Business Development Center. Uh, Today we were given the opportunity to have the Digital Process and Product Conference at Widener University. Um, we're looking forward to
Awesome.
bringing people in and interviewing them.
Awesome.
Do you mind introducing yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Annalicia Geeter. I'm an alumni from Widener University. I went here for business administration. I've received my MBA in strategic design thinking, and I'm one of the speakers here today to talk about design thinking and its practice within larger organizations and how that is able to navigate some of the transformational change that they want to do.
So I looked at a lot of videos on how design thinking works before the conference, and what the different areas of design thinking are. My question is, where do you think kind of design thinking is going in the future?
Sure.
And where do you think you see yourself with design thinking?
Yeah, so I was joking around with a couple of people in the hallway saying, when I went to school here, I said, I'm not going to do technology, right? And if we think about how humans, as our behaviors are going, everything is being digitized. Everything is moving in technology realm. My career went into technology. I grew up in product management and professional services. Now I work for a small strategic firm in Philadelphia called Navigate. And what we see with our clients and we see in the behavior in the industry now is you can't have one without the other. Intelligent automation, if we think about that, that's the ability to make business decisions in an automated fashion. So, you know, think of Waze, think of Amazon and how they do their facilities. That is all great and good, but design thinking really plays a huge portion in the human-centered approach, invoking empathy in those business practices. It's being able to anticipate, delight, bring together harmoniously all the different functions and products that you're doing. So really, I think it's becoming the must-have in strategy when we think about companies trying to keep up and move towards that digital realm. And those that are already in the digital space that are either disrupting or the key name holders out there for some of the systems that we have, they need to constantly be ahead of their consumer. They need to understand them. They need to have the practices and being out there and observe and find the insights that are going to lead them to their next business model.
So what kind of makes design thinking different from just a regular critical thinking or an analytical process? So what makes it design thinking?
Yeah, so design is like every other. You have Lean, Six Sigma, all those. They're all frameworks. Yeah. Design thinking really starts with empathy in the very start. So observations. A lot of what we need isn't always said, right? So some of the practices is observing, testing, putting it through a rigorous process that helps you kind of get to the end where you have an opportunity to implement that in a larger scale. So I think design thinking is exactly what it sounds like. It's a way of thinking. It's taking a designer's toolkit, something that's more artistic, creative, thinking outside the box, expanding your thought process, right? But then marrying it to a process that's going to help you really formulate an opinion, a business decision, an opportunity, a product at the end.
So with the empathy, does it kind of come back to almost almost customer centered? So you kind of want the end user to then have an experience or focus more on bringing out the product for the end user and keeping them satisfied.
Mm-hmm. So customer centricity versus customer focus. You hear it a lot of today. Businesses are like, what can I sell to my next customer? How can I meet my next client? Well, that's really need finding for you as an organization. Design puts you at that end user's perspective and thinking about what jobs need to get done for my end user. What do I need to, what's keeping them up at night? What's ahead of them? How's their growth pattern? So when they think of a student, they don't think of music student as an example, since we're at Widener. You walk into this university at 19, 18, right? But design follows a process of you throughout the longevity of your lifetime, right? So you can become a lifelong learner. You can go to grad school. So design's really thinking about what that end user needs and what they're trying to aspire to be, and trying to meet them along the way and create delights for them.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way. Like, did you, I guess when you were younger, like, what did you think you were going to be doing? And then, obviously now, it's a totally different mindset, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I always loved psychology. I think consumer behavior was one of the first courses I took, and I was, like, astounded. You know, one of the earliest examples I could actually lean on was this example of being in a grocery store and how the aisles of a grocery store are big enough for 2 shopping carts, and how they place all the products on the shelves is actually based on their consumer. So if you think about it, average height of a female is 5'5", or when I was learning it was around 5'5". I think we're growing. I'm 5'7". But the sales would be at that height level. And anything lower was more generic items. So psychologically, as you bent lower, you felt a little bit more shamed into buying those things, and if you wanted healthier items, they would be up top. So it was harder to reach, more aspirational.
Yeah.
So all the big name brands would be in the middle. And I just remember, I will never forget that lesson, just like that they invoked, or they created an experience. One, in my opinion, not a great one, but like, or not a fair one, but that is business. And they married it to their business model. So I kept studying school and going throughout school saying, like, why isn't there more courses like consumer behavior? Because aren't we serving consumers? Aren't we serving the end user? And that's what's led me to design thinking. I think it wasn't as popular as when I was in grad school, or undergrad.
I remember learning about, or it was like they would say that when 2 things complement themselves, so like cookies and milk, they kind of put them in almost the same aisles together, so that when you were going to buy the milk, you're like, oh, but I could pick up these cookies because I'm going to have them with it, or like peanut butter and jelly, the things that you would think go together.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the picture of like consumers and like the way people buy things, Peter and I were actually talking about earlier today, Porter's 5 Forces, and then when I watched the videos on design thinking, they were talking about how it's all about the end user and, you know, making it for those people. And when I was in class for one of my MBA classes, it was on leadership and management. We were talking about, you know, Porter's 5 Forces and who the buyers are. And then you don't think of buyers as like the personal, like one person. You think of it as like a big corporation who comes in and is buying your product. That's kind of what you want to shape it around. I thought it was kind of cool to look at the differences between like how Porter would think of things and then how like a design thinking aspect would look at, you know, more personal.
Yeah, that's a great perspective, because so for the type of work that I do, primarily my customers are B2B. So they lean heavily on that Porter's mindset. What we do is we kind of weave in design thinking practices and helping them understand that, okay, maybe you are in certain degrees away from your end user, but you might be your next customer, or we can start bucketing your customers, right? So, for example, if you are a wholesale distributor, your customer might be a store, it might be a large system like a health system, and it might not be the patient, right? It might not be the individual walking to the store to get that over-the-counter whatever. So how do you still keep a very empathy focus or approach, as well as how do you kind of keep the end user in mind? What we think about is, okay, well, in order for your customer, whatever degree that might be, there's always a frontline employee. And to us, like, you need to start thinking about your frontline employee as an end user as well, because their experience is actually going to bleed through to your customer's experience, right? And then your brand, which will then bleed through down the chain all the way closer to the patient.
It's almost like when you go to like a restaurant and you ask them, like, you know, what would you suggest for me? Like, what do you think's good? And if there's somebody who enjoys the food there and knows the food, they'll be able to give you a better opinion than if you go somewhere and like, well, I really don't like their food, or I don't actually buy here at all. Right. And then you're kind of like, do I really want to still shop here? Like, if they kind of don't go here, you know what I mean?
That makes sense.
All right. Well, for any viewers who are just turning in or have been here this whole time, we're still at Widener in the Small Business Development Center at a conference right now for a Digital Process and Products Conference. I'm joined here with Dr. Natalie Nixon.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Natalie Nixon. I'm a design strategist at Figure 8 Thinking.
So I want to start off asking you, what got you into design thinking?
What got me into design thinking was my appetite for learning. I was advised by my mentors when I was a professor. At the time, I had a master's degree, which was a terminal degree in my field in fashion management, to earn a PhD. And I really did not know where to start or what field would be of interest. And coincidentally, a colleague forwarded me a link to this area called design management. I Googled it. This was over 10 years ago. And I learned really quickly that design management was really huge in the UK and Europe. Not so big here in the United States. And through a series of introductions and events, I ended up applying to, get accepted to, and enrolling in a PhD program in design management where I focused on service design. And it really rocked my world. It was finally a paradigm and a place that allowed for much more hybrid integrative thinking. And that then led me to founding something called the Strategic Design MBA program at Jefferson University.
What's entailed with that program? Like, what do they kind of do in that program? Like, how do you get into it?
So it was an executive MBA program that in 22 months integrated design thinking into the way graduates were learning leadership, strategy, financial operations, management, and those sorts of things.
I remember you saying that design thinking wasn't something that was kind of over here. It was more like European and everything. Do you know what was going on over here? Like, what was more like the ideals, I guess, over here at the time?
Well, I think design thinking, not as much anymore. I think it's a bit, people in the United States are a bit more progressive in the way they're integrating design thinking. But at the time, the top academic institutions that were really promoting and utilizing and teaching design thinking were Stanford's D School, the Institute of Design in Chicago, the Savannah College of Art and Design, and Darden's College of Business at the University of Virginia, as well as a few others. Parsons in New York also had some design management type of programs. And then in terms of practice, companies like IDEO are really huge still today, as well as Frog Design, Smart Design, Continuum. And what's really interesting is that starting about 3 years ago, the traditional management strategy companies like McKinsey, Accenture, Deloitte have all started to acquire these creative strategy and design thinking firms.
That's pretty cool, because so I worked at a construction company, Turner Construction, in Philly. It wasn't this past, I believe it was this past summer, and they were getting into lean. And it's cool how, like, it's almost like a whole, shift in corporations where one way, like, for a certain amount of time they're going one way, and then, an ideology comes through, and then it kind of changes how everybody else views things, and everybody kind of joins along, where it's like design thinking, where it's like it probably wasn't something that was prevalent like 10 years ago, and now it's starting to take over, and people are starting to get involved in it.
Yes.
What kind of was your, like, when you were younger, what did you think you were going to do, and then obviously now?
Gosh, when I was younger, I thought I might be anything from a dancer to a writer to a nurse. I was a bit all over the place as a little girl. And then in college, I remember when I first started in college, I thought I wanted to major in either biology or English, and I ultimately studied anthropology, which was amazing and perfect for me. And I still to this day use my practice in cultural anthropology, because anthropology provided me with the skill set of asking very different types of questions and learning how to ask questions, learning how to observe first, and to gather insights from the ground up. I always say that sociology, economics, political science are social sciences that give you the bird's eye view. Anthropology, especially cultural anthropology, gives you the worm's eye view and the one-on-one and the deeper dive. And so as I hone my skills as a qualitative researcher, especially earning the PhD, it's become invaluable in the work that I do now for clients.
I could definitely say anthropology helped. I had an anthropology class when I went here, and when I was, I believe it was my sophomore year, I didn't see how it could really connect back with business, and I was like, why do I have to take these type of classes? And then as you get through the whole program, you do start to see how like certain classes that you didn't think really connected, it all comes about in like the business world. Like when you have that one-on-one experience with people in the business world, it makes it I think a totally different experience, especially here with the Small Business Development Center. We're always working with clients like one-on-one, and then we have to, help with them getting more clientele or customers or employees, and everything is really, a personal interaction.
And it really is the key to consumer insights. So when companies are really trying to understand what do people need, what do they want, what gets them up in the morning, what keeps them up at night, that is something that you only get a surface sensibility from through big data and from statistical data. I think ideally the best scenario is when the two processes are integrated.
Yeah. Where do you think in the next couple of years, 5-10 years down the line, do you think design thinking will go or evolve into?
Well, I've never thought that design thinking is the end-all be-all. I think it's a really important tool, and it's an important tool for people to add into their toolkit along with statistical analysis and data visualization and lean and agile, because it helps us to remember, why are we in this business? For whom are we developing and designing these services and these experiences and these products? So that's why it's really critical. I think that it will become much more integrative into the way people do business and will not be as novel. At least I hope it will not be as novel. And it will start to be incorporated a lot more. I think definitely when you started seeing the traditional management strategy firms like the McKinsey and Accenture integrate those types of companies into their toolkits, then that was a really interesting signal in the landscape. I think what's going to become, I think maybe the future shift in design thinking might be foresight work. Because foresight work, in my view, is not about telling the future or about one possible future, but it's about multiple possible future scenarios. And that is significant because it helps companies to stay agile and adaptive and just being open to
all opportunities,
to various opportunities and various ways that they might need to shift.
I'd say that makes a lot of sense. Always, it's almost like planning for any situation that could come about. Like instead of thinking, if you're running and somebody trips, like they're gonna scrape their knee or something. Like it's almost like, well, what was happening or how's the situation going? Like you can't always plan for it.
Or even understanding that you could trip. I mean, some of the challenges for some of the biggest companies that are ahead of the pack, their vulnerability sometimes is that they don't anticipate the competition that might be coming from them in really unexpected places that will cause them to trip. So it's always maintaining that humility and that resiliency to be able to be adaptive.
It's like you have to think outside the box and think of all like possible outcomes and possible things that could cause the problem. Yeah. My other question that I wanted to ask you about was what do you think would be your greatest, like what is the point that you really want to get across today at this conference to everybody?
Today, my talk is called Eyes on the Prize and the human factor as we talk about digital technology. I think it's so critical for us to remember that technology at the end of the day is a tool, and we can't fall in love with the tool without recalling why it's there in the first place. So what I want to leave people with are 4 shifts I'm going to conclude with about the direction that the future of work is headed, in my view, and how digital technology can integrate with those shifts.
The last thing that I kind of wanted to leave off with, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, just because it is a busy day today. So earlier, Peter and I were talking. I think I brought this up. I'm gonna try to bring it up in every interview. Is we're talking about the Porter's 5 forces, and how it's designed so like when you look at buyers, like the buyers are kind of, you look at like the big industry and like that's the people who control like kind of the decisions that you make. And then when you look at design thinking, when I was looking it up, it kind of had to do with like the end user and like making sure like customers are happy or they're getting the product that they need for the next couple of years. And I just thought it was crazy how it's like the total like it's a big difference between thinking who has the power and like whose court is the ball in, basically. Is it the big corporations, or is it every day, like you and I or something like that, on how they design the next product that they come out with?
Well, especially with what people are calling the fourth industrial revolution, which is the transition to cloud, life has become even more ambiguous, and a company's ability to control the outcome, if that ever was a reality, is even diminished even further, because end consumers, people, we have a lot more options. We have a lot more access to information to shape our choices, to shape where we're going to land, where we're going to end up. So, what is always valuable in my work is to help organizations and companies design processes internally to ensure that they will be adaptive to the end users, and to make sure that we're integrating digital into the way we do work. Eventually, digital technology will not. Well, I think it also will not be as in our face as it is right now. And there's attributes and challenges to that situation. But right now, it's at the forefront of our minds that it's almost like we're tripping over it quite a bit.
Yeah, I would definitely say that it's almost like advancing in a way, where it's like the mix between generations and how everything's. We're at such like a tech age where it's like my nieces and nephews have things that when I was younger I didn't have, and then even past that my parents and my grandparents didn't have. Like it's, as each generation is born, like I was around for like more like the beginning of the iPhone, and then it's like my nephew doesn't even know what a flip phone is.
Right.
So it's a very different change in, I think, technology.
You're right. And think about today's workplace is the first time we have about 4 to 5 different generations working together, and to be able to think about all the challenges and opportunities that will entail is really important.
Just in the communication alone is different between how the different methods of like emailing or phone calling and face-to-face interactions. Like you kind of got to know. It's almost like you got to know your audience at all times.
At all times.
So, well, thank you for sitting down with us. And
you're welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.
All you.
Welcome back, everybody. Right now, we don't have anybody to interview.
Stuck with me. Sorry.
You're stuck with Peter for right now. Everybody's at lunch. We just thought we'd take the time to talk about kind of the things that we've learned so far from the design thinking conferences.
I think we maybe intuitively know a little bit more about design thinking than I ever thought we did. So maybe that's something I've learned so far, is that we can analyze and we can discover things through intuition and just kind of stumbling our way through life, as far as just learning, seeing what the world is about is one way to learn. It's not the only way. It's not necessarily a better way than analyzing and using the scientific method, but it makes me feel good, because that's the way I would prefer to learn.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually a nice thing.
I'd say the one thing that I found great about this was it was really reassuring that what we're doing here in the Small Business Development Center like really does connect back to what they're doing in industry, and like the same ideas, like the things that I thought were kind of out there, like that we were doing, actually isn't really so far out there. I mean,
yeah, it was, I think, comforting, particularly watching Dr. Nixon's presentation, keynote right before lunch. And there were a lot of words and terms that were coming out, and I thought, okay, we're not crazy. I felt, I don't know, not that I felt unsure of what we're doing here at the Small Business Development Center, trying to help people in using some, more human, more empathic, and intuitive processes than purely analytical. I never felt that we were going down the wrong road with that. But I really started feeling much more comfortable that I think we're not only in the right space, but we're in the space that is going to be emerging as this is one of the ways I think consulting is going to be done in business moving forward as we progress into the 21st century.
Yeah, it would definitely be cool to see that instead of boardrooms and everything in the next 10 years, it'll be like rooms just like this where you can write on every wall, or the chairs move however you want, little like desk chairs.
But it's the flexibility piece of things where, if we need a room to hold, 12 people, we move the furniture to accommodate 12 people.
12 people.
If it needs to be a fireside chat, as we're having now, we make the adjustment. And I think that component of being flexible, again, back to what I think you got, even particularly out of the interviews you've done today, was that this is a human-centered and customer-oriented approach.
Yeah, I definitely do like that aspect of having it more customer centric, because that's something that I've always enjoyed. Like whenever I went anywhere to a business, I always liked when they connected to you. So like at least twice a week I go to Starbucks, and there's a guy who works there, Tom, who knows me so well that whenever I go in, either he's making me a new drink or he knows the drink that I want. Like yesterday I went in and I wanted to get a frappuccino. So I used to get an ultra caramel frappuccino. They stopped making them.
What is your thing? Okay.
And so I had to go back to a caramel frappuccino. And when I went in yesterday, the girl was like, "Oh, they have the stuff for the ultra caramel frappuccino. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Of course I do." And it was just, having that connection where somebody remembers who you are and brings happiness to work. I'd say, like, instead of it being like a glum day or just going in, doing the work, checking the box, saying, "Yep, swipe your card, whatever, go over there." It's definitely a better aspect of having people who really want to connect with their customers and have a better feel.
Yeah, and I think you can do well with that. I think that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be higher cost. I don't think you have to have more training even.
No.
Starbucks went through some of those issues with the training. I think it's allow your people to be human and let them make connections with other humans. And I really think that that's something that isn't trainable. It's something that you have to look for as you're hiring, to find out which people might be on our staff that can actually create connections between others, customers and potential customers.
I would definitely say having people like that in management positions definitely does help too, because when you have managers who then can relate back to you or are pushing that idea, like it's like leading by example. And when you have a leader who then does those same things and you want to be like that because you know that it kind of pushes for success, and at the same time you're not being squashed because you have a different ideal.
That would make it much easier to get up for work if you knew that you didn't have to always be right to be successful at work, and if you're wrong, there's still guidance and structure that's there to help you grow, as opposed to if you make a mistake, your next step is out the door.
See you later.
Yeah, and I think it's just you get different perspectives, different people with different values, different experiences. We're all looking at the same kinds of problems, particularly if it's a small business development center. We're looking at how do we help small businesses start and grow, and everybody addresses that problem in a different way. And odds are there's not necessarily a right way or a wrong way. There's ways that people have tried that might have gone well, and they might have not gone well. But the point is, every situation is unique, and we don't know if it's going to work the same way the next time. But the point is, if you start hearing it from those different perspectives, I think you have, at least in my mind, you have some more faith that this design, test, learn, evolve process is the one thing that you can really control that drives the whole thing is the testing. We got to try something, because if we just continually design, we never
really
learn.
Put anything in action. Yeah.
But if you only test and you never learn from that, then you have some problems. But to me, the key ingredient is really that testing component, that we've got to figure out ways to make something happen so that we can get the critical learning component out of it.
It's almost like, you set a date for yourself, and then instead of saying, "Oh, I'm going to wait," you just put it out. And that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Today was kind of spontaneous.
Yeah,
We decided, we're going to try to interview people. None of the interviews were scheduled at all. We're kind of just sending them in here, and it's something that helps people. At the same time, it helps us learn what are we doing and what can we learn from that. And then whoever, obviously views the stream gets to kind of give us feedback on what we need to do to improve and what are things we could do next time.
Yeah, and I think, you've talked about some things just kind of, technical or infrastructure related, where maybe if we had some, traditional microphones and things in here, I think that would be something that would be good. And I completely agree with that. I think that sets the tone that this is, semi-professional uh, production. It's not,
Yeah.
and I do think that we are that now. It's just that
Just
you
taking
know,
it to that next level almost.
right, and that's the evolution of what's next. How could we do this slightly different and slightly better so that the viewing audience gets some value out of it? And then the question is, are there ways that we can get this on the TV screens out in the atrium here? And we
Be
do
able to
this
be streaming
live,
for everybody. Yeah.
take this online, and as people are walking in and out of the building, it might be nice to say, oh yeah, this is happening live
Right
here.
now. Right in our own
Right here in
backyard.
your building.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I think, to me, are things that we can do better. As I look at the things that we do as a small business development center, I look at them critically and say, what could be done different and better? I think we could be telling our story better. I think we could be engaging with our clients better, which is, again, why this live streaming test is a thing, is that I think that, particularly when we're looking at millennial and iGeneration entrepreneurs, having the ability to grab us on a mobile device or right there embedded in an Instagram feed, you're able to just get drawn right into something that's engaging. It's in your communication stream, and then also providing some valuable content. Those things, I think, if we can figure out some of that, I think it would really help us to drive credibility, particularly with those audiences.
Yeah, being able to provide the content online kind of gives you that, it helps with self-education for the people, and then also giving them that, the deep immersion where they can just go in and then dig through videos and see what information they can use and pull out.
Yeah, and it's also helping, to me, it also helps us, and particularly the students that work with us, to get into that mindset of creating. Let's go make something. Where I think for a lot of people that is, it's stressful because it's easy, it's safer to design here, and when we put something out, it's open to criticism. We could fail. I could say something wrong. All kinds of things can go wrong, and it's a significant hurdle to just say, forget it. Let's just go over that, and if no one watches, no problem. Again, it was a test, and I'm going to learn from that and evolve into something better. And to me, that's the thing that, if entrepreneurs could take that mindset as well, particularly startups, to say, I don't have to be perfect day one, but what I need to be is I need to be testing so I can learn, to me, is the most critical thing we could be teaching our startups, is how do we test small scale so that we can begin this iterative process of design, test, learn, evolve, which is going to take us from a startup phase to a started phase and then to growth.
It's like what the one client who we met with, who was basically saying it's like having an invisible business. Right now, like when you're in that design phase, like everything's basically invisible. Nobody knows your idea. You're trying to, start it up, get it out there, and then you want to turn it into an invincible business.
Right.
So, I'm hoping we can kind of get that information out there so people understand what they're going to do, and then, at least give them avenues that they can call in or
and I hope, like I said, not to say that we have the answers, but I think we can become a platform, or at least a space where people can come and try to explore what might be potential opportunities, avenues, or pathways to start a business or to grow their business. And then hopefully we can teach them some strategies and methods so that that test is not something that would result in catastrophic failure. Failure is failure. It's just, actions did not meet intentions, and the only failure truly happens if you don't learn from that. And to me, that's the critical component that we can also help provide, is we can be a space where you can come join us in the Success Lab, sit by the fire,
fireplace.
Warm your hands by the fire in the fall and winter, and have this as a space where you can come and critically reflect back and say, this is what I tried, and now I want to talk about it so I can figure out maybe where the failure happened, or where things didn't go as planned, so that I can learn from that and reload and try again.
I'd say one of the nice things about us being here is we're able to give that feedback. So like instead of you talking to friends who would have a biased opinion towards whatever they're going to tell you, like we have that outside, we're on the outside looking in on whatever your idea is. So for us, you can pitch it to us, and then we can say, I think you should go this way, or I think you should go that way, because for the most part, we're not going to sugarcoat things. We're going to try to help explain things. What was it that Paul Abdul did that like came back for a short amount of time? It was like the whole workout outfits.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I mean, for the most part, fashion repeats itself. We hope that history doesn't always.
That's a good point, right? Fashion does run in cycles. And I do think business runs in those cycles as well, although technology tends to be a thing that
is always advancing.
It is, but at the same time, we're still solving the same problems. We're just doing them with different technological components. We're doing this live broadcast with, a $45 Logitech camera, my Lenovo laptop, and some free software.
Yeah.
That's basically what we do with the microphone.
And then we have the money.
But the point is, we could be doing this with nothing more than that. And you question why aren't there more people doing this? And I don't know. So it's not the technology that's holding people back. I don't think that we're looking at it's just the prices are so high. The technical knowledge needed is not high. But
I mean, I'd say it comes back to the idea that when we talk to the engineers about what is a lab, and you go into a lab and there's like safety precautions that you always take. So when you go into a lab with chemicals, you're going to be wearing glasses. You have your lab coat on.
Right.
And when it comes to the business, you kind of have to you go into the danger zone. So you're trying to take that aspect of you have to just jump in. Like if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's kind of like the risk you have to take on. So I'd say the reason that some people might not do the same things or like push the same topics is because you really have to kind of go all the way in. You can't just kind of put your right foot in and then shake it all about. You really gotta go all the way.
Well, and that's in my mind that's a really interesting analogy that some of the engineering students from Widener helped us put form to, was this concept of when they go into a laboratory setting. There's certain things, there's processes, there's protocol, there's safety equipment that they have, but there's also something that they're not going into the lab for no reason. It's not just like, oh, hey, I'll go in here. They don't go in there to study. They go in there because they've done research, they've come up with a hypothesis, and now they need to go test it. And this is something that I think, again, what I think the Success Lab that we're in now, we could be using for is, that's the space where people come to develop the hypothesis, and it's a separate space from their business, which then becomes the laboratory. But to me, it's really hard for you to separate the hypothesizing from the testing if it's all happening in the same space.
Spot.
And to me, that's something that I think we could do. We need to figure out a way to communicate to people that the one of the reasons you come into a space like this is to designate your workspace is actually the laboratory. That's where you're doing the testing. And what we could be doing is saying the opportunity for you to step out of that lab space is you need to come out of it so that you can start figuring out, these are the things that I think will happen when I open the store on Tuesday morning. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to change the music to this. I'm going to put on some kind of video, whatever it might be. We need to design or hypothesize that outside of the laboratory space. And then when we go to work, we need to treat that not only as the business, but that's the lab. That's where we discover and learn so that we can continue to evolve it. And to me, that is something that if we could start, I think, communicating that's the value of what a small business development center can do, I think that would be really, really helpful. I also find myself, when we had engineering students in, we were talking about things to do with your hands when you're talking. I'm doing And I can't.
The Obama.
Who said was it Finbar that said the golf ball, or was that?
Oh yeah.
Hector? Somebody
I think
said,
it was Finbar.
and he said, pretend you're throwing a golf ball. So I've been doing that. So I apologize.
Because you told him the theory about the football. Where
Right.
You got
Just talk about a football.
football.
Act like you're describing a football. So I apologize. I've been pretending to throw a golf ball on the camera all day today. But so what's been your thought, Josh? I mean, you're a recent graduate in accounting. You're working on your master's degree in taxation. So now all of a sudden you're tossed into this digital processing, digital process, design thinking. How do you navigate these two worlds?
It's kind of hard. It's totally different from what you'd expect because you kind of have to, it's almost like you're turning a switch where you were going in one direction and now you got to find a different avenue to then present information. Whereas, with accounting and everything, you'd see more of a sit down, you try to bring people in and talk to them. And now it's like this where you have to then, stream that information out to people. Like we're in such a tech age where it's like, what makes you better than me just going online and buying, say, H&R Block or something like that, where it's like, with the way that things are digitized, it's like, what makes it so you need that sometimes personal interaction at all?
Well, and you were just talking about lessons learned from like fitness and weightlifting and things like that. And, when you just were talking about how do you compete in this digital age and how do you why are we streaming? Like, we know no one's going to watch because we have no value really at this stage. But the point is, the only way we're going to get to a point where there's enough value that someone would tune in, we have to get way better at this. Yeah. And the only way you get better is we got to lift up a bunch of lightweights until we become proficient at doing that before we can step up to other scales. So this is, we apologize for the early adopters because, we're not there, but we're getting there. I think we're progressing. I think so.
I would say the one thing that I've always learned was one of the guys who I used to work out with, had the idea of, read, research, and rehearse. You can't really go around asking everybody else, what do they do or how do they do it? You kind of just got to go out, research it, learn about it, then take that knowledge, put it back in the gym, and then see what works or what doesn't work. So the same here where, we're trying to learn how to live stream. Go around, you watch somebody like Joe Rogan or you watch Adam 22 or you watch, even Jack Maxwell who we met, and you listen to how their podcasts work, how their YouTube videos work, what do they do in their environment, and then you try to pull that back into what you do, like what can apply to you, and then what values can you add to make yourself, valuable to other people.
Right, and this is part of that process of design, test, learn, evolve. Now is that we went out, we watched a lot of different podcasts to say what are people talking about, how are they communicating, and the point is the live stream is exactly that. This is just a window into what's happening at the SBDC in the Success Lab right here, right now. And it's not going to be polished all the time. It's not going to be rehearsed all the time. But what it is going to be is authentic. It's going to be real. It may be improvised at the moment. But the point is, it is what we think matters. This is the stuff that is current, topical, and when opportunity arises to bring in some great speakers that we've had here at Widener University today, we've had the door open and we say, come on in, sit down, grab the mic, even if it's just for 5 minutes, and come just talk to a camera, because we're learning. So this is part of our way of not only learning the process of streaming, but also becoming comfortable with the informality of saying, guys, you're going to see us in a space where if someone comes to the door in the next 2 minutes and says, what are you doing here? We're going to say, come on in, be part of it. And we could produce that out. We could get rid of that, but I don't know why. And maybe that's something a year from now we'll say, no, we don't want to do that because it detracts from something. But at this point,
it takes away. Yeah.
I don't know that that's a thing we need to do.
Yeah, I do like how we're able to say, just jump right in with us. We're jumping in, just come on in, and then we'll ask you a couple questions. It might not be even hard questions or anything that you think you want to talk about, but you know.
Yeah, so things that we need to work on. We're gonna do some of our own 4K backgrounds here. So maybe by the next week we'll have some different
Original
backgrounds to show you.
backgrounds.
Original
It's-
content created for the SBDC. So we get to again go out, be creative, and to me this is the exciting part about a job like this for me is that what we're hopefully doing is creating some value for our audience. We're creating some connection or value in an entrepreneur coming here to the Success Lab to learn and design their ideas. But at the same time, we're, I think, becoming better at our craft. It shows how poor we are at our craft, or at least me, at this stage of the game. But the point is, I think as we move forward, we're only going to get better, and I'm okay with that.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to, one of the things that the engineer students talked about was, showing like pictures of success, of, like people that we've helped before. And it's kind of like right now what we're doing is we're trying to achieve our own business aspect where we want to push ourselves into like a different segment where we want to go into online. And it's kind of like, you could follow us through our path that we're taking. Like, look at what we're doing and, you could do the same. Like, just because you think you can't do something doesn't mean that you really can't do it. And it just really takes kind of persevering through whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We talked about Jack Maxwell, who does a podcast, also has a television show on the Travel Channel that we got an opportunity to meet with a couple weeks ago at a conference. But he talks about just be in the moment. And that's one of the things that the live stream is not perfect. It's not what you see if you turn on network television during prime time. That's not what you're going to see. But what you are going to see is you're going to see actual people living in the moment and hopefully learning, discovering, and communicating out to anybody that wants to watch it, whether it's live or even in an archive format. The point is, I think what I like about this medium, at least personally, is it's just in the moment. This is here and now. This is real and
unscripted.
It is, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more people, particularly here today, while we've got this digital process and product conference going on at Widener University, and Professor Antonucci at Widener, and many others. But I really think Professor Antonucci is such a key driver of bringing great people from this industry, bringing them to Widener on a special day, and I really, to me it's very impressive to see the people that have come and traveled to be here on a Tuesday all day to commiserate and communicate and teach and learn is really very interesting, and I think it's wonderful that people put in that effort, because it's a lot of work, and we're all overloaded. And when people can come together and put together a moment like this, I think it's great.
You can really gain like such valuable knowledge just from a short day of just different guest speakers, because everybody brings something new to the table or something different.
Well, so we were talking over lunch about this process of doing live streaming and putting together videos like this, and one of the things you said was basically, if I had written this up in a syllabus and I was your professor, this was not going to motivate you. This would be a drop an ad. You would scan that syllabus and say, "Whoa, I saw this on the syllabus. I'm going to move on to another course." But yet at the same time, we could have spent 12 weeks building up to this moment, and this could be like your final assignment is you're going to do a live stream from a digital process and products conference, and your responsibility is speak to 3 of the conference guests, and that we could have spent an entire semester building to that point. And yet at the same time, we could have done it in 5 days if we just decided, let's put together something and make it reality. And that's what I was going to say, I think you did. I know you did, and I really appreciate that you did that. But it also shows me that time is not the critical component to learning. It's, I don't know whether it's passion, interest, or buy-in, whatever it might be. There's something other than, you don't need the time to come up with that.
I think it definitely has to do with that passion, or like just wanted to bring that heart. Like when you care about something enough and you show that you care about something, it really does drive what you do.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And the same thing. People that are at this conference are here because they're passionate about this, and I guess that's part of the benefit of getting advanced in your field is that when you're in middle school, being very strong in a specific subject tends to be a differentiating thing, and being different at that age might not always be the best thing. But then when you come to events like this and you say, wow, that differentiation is what makes everybody so interesting and valuable.
Yeah, the leaders at both conferences we went to, the one thing that I can say they have is like they really show that heart and that passion. Like they always say things with like a smile on their face, and they really do show that they care about everything that they're talking about and what they're trying to achieve. It's always to like better everybody else or better like the things around them.
Right, and isn't that crazy? Like people that you would think, man, they're so busy, they have so much to do and so much opportunity that they could make time, energy, or money for themselves, and yet you go to a place like this and all of a sudden you meet them and they just want to give it to you. And man, that's what is amazing about humanity is that there really are wonderful people out there when you get to meet them and sit by the fireplace and chat with them.
Yeah.
Man, it really is inspiring.
So.
All right, so it sounds like people are coming back from lunch.
Welcome back, everybody. We found two men to interview. You guys mind introducing yourselves?
So I'm Ryan Raiker. I'm a product marketing manager for TimelinePI.
And I'm Wes Long. I am a digital marketing specialist for TimelinePI. Actually, I'm an intern right now. I'm a senior at Widener.
So Wes and I have known each other for a few years.
Yeah.
Obviously, just a few years ago, I was here as a student. So excited to be back for the conference that's going on today.
What got you guys involved in coming to the conference today?
Oh, well, I guess just excited about what's happening, digital innovation, changes in the market space. We're working at a startup company called TimelinePI, which is really about process intelligence and utilizing technology to make the enterprise better.
Yeah, it definitely was a big opportunity. I mean, personally, I can say that being a senior right now, and being able to be here and like learn about the industries and learn kind of like all about what's happening in the whole process, digital transformation and processes and stuff like that. That's definitely something. And I feel like I could take any knowledge I've learned today and like put it towards working at TimelinePI. So like that's something that definitely sparked my interest.
Have you found that like some of your classwork kind of connects back to some of the stuff they talk about, or even the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so it's funny because a couple of my professors definitely as soon as I leave the classroom, I get there and I'm like I just learned about this. Like I'm just learning about this stuff. Like this is great. This is awesome stuff. Whereas sometimes I'm sitting there and I go and I'm learning stuff at Timeline that I can then apply to. Like it's benefit for both ways.
Yeah.
Like I can take my knowledge that I learned at Timeline and I can utilize it for classes, and then same way back is like take my class knowledge and use it for Timeline. And overall, I think I'm doing pretty good at Timeline, and I'd say I'm doing pretty good in classes. So
yeah, it's really unique when you think about the opportunities that co-op students and students who go on internships actually get. And at a conference like today, where you're actually learning about the technologies and the innovations that are happening. So a lot of the time, a textbook, and I'm sure you've read a textbook before.
Of course.
Sort of old. A lot of things aren't updated daily. When you look at technology, it's changing every day. Amazon's coming out with a new Echo for your car. Those types of technologies, those devices didn't exist, 18 months ago. So the evolution of technology is fast, where academics sort of lag behind. They're based on, theory and stuff that's set in stone for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So as business evolves and students can get experience working in the field, they start to see just how quickly things change. But certainly any of those opportunities to learn more, I think the classroom's a great stepping stone. But certainly accelerating that through internships and co-ops.
Oh, definitely. That's definitely been my experience. Co-op has probably been the most beneficial experience I've had here. I love being able to like utilize my knowledge that I've learned, like I said, learned in the classroom, utilize that knowledge and just take it into the real world and have that real world experience is definitely something that I think is the most valuable thing coming out of college.
Do you think we could kind of reverse and almost take the real world into the classroom, like maybe bring businesses more in tune with like classwork? So it's like, as we do something like in class, if you're doing a marketing class, we get a firm in who says, I need this, do you guys mind, providing this type of information? You think that would help?
So I
business
know
training?
with the SBDC, part of what they've been doing with Senior Project is bringing students to work with small businesses. I think fundamentally that outsider point of view is just fantastic. When you take that and you inform students about the issues that are happening within small businesses, they start to realize that the stuff that they learned in that marketing class can be applied. That theory does evolve into action. So certainly, I mean, any opportunity for most to work with industry, and for industry to come back and work with students. I think one of my most regarded or most highly regarded examples of what we do is that the interns that I've brought in from Widener are knowledgeable, they're informed, they're eager to learn, and that translates into quality projects. And what we're able to do is we have an outsider's point of view who's not necessarily stuck in old ways of business and the practices that have been going on for years, but they're eager to try new things, eager to learn. And when we take that and we combine that with the digital innovation and the things that are happening within business, those changes, it's these college students who are really, really changing the game.
It's almost like they have design thinking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that one. That's one of the things that I benefit looking at it as a student is like you have that experience. You're bringing that experience that they already can provide you with, and bring it into the classroom and bring that knowledge. That's something that I feel like it's much more needed. Like I really enjoy that type of learning. I know not everybody learns that way, but I feel like personally I would learn a lot from that. And just overall looking at it like from a student is it helps you. It not only helps you like learn more, but maybe you can network with them. You can kind of grow your network. You can build out your own personal business, and you can kind of make that even bolster that up even more, just by getting to meet these people.
And one of the things when you think about the changes that we've seen, earlier we were talking about how Uber didn't exist when I was in undergrad, and what would that require to go out into the city? I mean, Philadelphia is only a few minutes from Widener, but it was an adventure. I mean, you had to plan that out. Now you pull out your cell phone and it's like your ride will be here in 3 minutes. And by the way, if it gets lost because the exit's closed, you're gonna say exactly where they're at the whole time. Not to mention, when you order something online, I mean, they're telling you, oh, it's 8 stops away. That type of technology. When you start to think about the students that are coming up through undergrad, they're used to an entirely different world.
Yeah.
And when you think of industry, we're a lot of those industries have been stuck in those old habits. So as you start to bring these kids who have been involved in a technology where you just speak and the package shows up at your door, possibly the same day, I think those opportunities for students to bring that type of knowledge and that experience to those who are really hard set in their ways to kind of change the way businesses are functioning and changing the way industry thinks, those are really great points to be made so that there's opportunities there for growth.
I would definitely say that, with the changes in technology, it brings almost like a new light to everything that's being done in industry, and it also helps when you do have millennials in the workplace, as much as it's kind of like, oh, millennials are joining us. We bring something new, and I think, sometimes change can be scary, but then if you do want to become, industry leaders or advance in a positive light, having those changes can, better the company.
No, absolutely. When you think about, scary changes, and I think we see that a lot when it comes to technology, and some of the conversations today are revolving about robotics or robotic process automation, and the thought is that these things will take jobs away, and really they're creating immense opportunity for students and for knowledge workers to really begin to see that innovation can actually accelerate growth. It's able to produce more and add more jobs because of the new technologies. When you think of, would you ever want to be a taxi driver? Well, I'm not sure, but today Uber gives you that opportunity. generally those aren't the ability today to go into your pocket with the technology and start a business is incredible. And for students, I mean, it's just there's a world of opportunity out there.
I don't think students grasp the amount of access they have to this technology. I could honestly say that Uber, I've used it like once or twice. Personally, like that's just me. But I know people who utilize it to the max, where they're not only using it but they're driving. They're creating this space where they can just work and do their own thing. But I feel like sometimes we kind of take it for granted because of how used to it we are. We're always used to changes. Like millennials, it's just the way we are. We're consistently getting updates on stuff, and it's like, okay, well how's that? It's not going to benefit me at the moment, but then you don't realize like the amount of technology advancement is like, holy crap! Like you get a lot of it.
It's like when you look at Widener, so we have all those, like we have vans around here that transport students around, and you know, one of the companies I work for in Philly, to get job to job, they would say, you know, call an Uber and then we'll reimburse you, or use the company card and just use an Uber instead of having to take a taxi, like a legit taxi, or you know, having to have a company vehicle. So what do you think you're going to be speaking about today in your presentation?
So my presentation is later on this afternoon, and I'm talking about our technology, and the title of the presentation is More Than BI, and if you're familiar with BI, it's business intelligence, the typical point-in-time relations to what high-level key metrics are in business. And what we do uniquely at TimelinePI is we look at the entire history of a process. So the timing becomes very critical as far as the spacing between events, how often events occur. Uniquely enough, BI just does not answer those questions. It has no really understanding of how processes flow.
Yeah.
So we have a patented approach called the timeline analysis, and that is what we're going to talk about and explain to the attendees at the conference today, sort of where there may be some value in that to accelerate their digital transformation, accelerate any of their BPM projects or RPA initiatives.
Well, thank you guys for your time. I'm going to let you go. I know everybody's trying to move around.
Thanks a lot.